and then some. RunIN with wise fools in the high noon. Can't take your money with you. Sure as hell can't.
Welcome to episode number 3 of the RunIN podcast. My name is Brock Hagerman, one of your hosts. I'm joined by the Chris Walden.
Hello. I'm glad to be here.
Today we are going to be talking about some Indiana high school indoor track and field. We have some early returns, early results coming in on this young indoor season. Some kids out there giving it all on the track, even though Indiana doesn't have that official indoor season. So we're a few weeks out from the HSR series and a few weeks out from official practice beginning. But we do have some great performances, Chris, that we've seen over the past few weeks.
Yeah, good start. Season's kind of underway, even though it's kind of unofficial start. But definitely there's been some opportunities for some of those athletes that maybe didn't have the best close or the finish they wanted to cross country. So kind of allows them to finally put something down and get that taste out of their mouth and get ready for track.
And before we get started going through some of these performances, big shout out to Mile Split, Indiana, for being the home of the RunIN podcast. We really appreciate their hospitality and use their databases, performance metrics to pull some results so we can be better informed on this podcast, Chris.
So you can find them at in.milesplit.com.
So a few weekends ago, the Indiana Runner Open meet happened on February the 2nd at Taylor University. Shout out to Derek Leininger for being quick on his feet, just like his old 800-meter running days where he was a medalist at Columbia City. The meet was originally scheduled to be at Purdue Fort Wayne, but due to that crazy freezing weather, pipes bursting at the campus of Purdue Fort Wayne, the meet had to be adjusted and moved to Taylor University at the last second. So glad to see that meet went off, and I'm sure Derek was pulling some late night hours there adjusting. So I think the big story, Chris, at Taylor for the Indiana Runner Open meet was the Fort Wayne Carroll girls. I know we talked about them in the last podcast, about them possibly being a force in the 3200. Looks like they're getting some early speed work in right now.
Definitely. They're doing everything that we thought they would be, and I'm sure they got some good training going on up there in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, and it looks like some of these Carroll girls, we're looking at Zoe Duffus, Megan Hathaway, and Abby Green, a trio of Carroll Chargers, ran the 1600 and the 800 at the Indiana Runner Open meet at Taylor. All three of them ran 5:07.0 in the 1600. Makes me wonder if they were. I wasn't there. Maybe we can get an account from a listener. Were they racing each other? Were they holding hands crossing the finish line? Was this a 5:07 tempo type effort? But they were all within 0.03 seconds of each other.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I wasn't able to see how it unfolded. I would have liked to have seen kind of how that went down. I know indoor tracks, 200-meter tracks, it can be hard to move. It can be tough tactically. So we'll get a chance to see how they do coming up here this season, I'm sure.
Yeah, and 5:07 for all three of those athletes. That's a solid time for early February on what I presume at Taylor is a flat, probably 200-meter or smaller indoor track. So good early returns from Fort Wayne Carroll. We also had Brooke Dixon from Brownsburg close behind in a 5:10. Once again, a very solid early season time. Erin Strzelecki from Fort Wayne. I think she's Bishop Dwenger, if I'm not mistaken. 5:16. Once again, another solid 1600 time this early. And Julie Dvorak from Homestead and 5:17 close behind there. So a lot of Fort Wayne athletes with a Brownsburg athlete and Brooke Dixon mixed in. So great girls 1600 up there at Taylor in Upland, Indiana. Moving on, same meet, girls 800. Like we said, the Fort Wayne Carroll trio doubled back and ran. Zoe Duffus ran 2:22 in the 800, showing a little more speed there than her teammates Megan Hathaway and Abby Green, who came in at 2:26 in second and third. And then we had a Noblesville athlete, Anna Hazelrig, also at 2:26. Behind Megan Hathaway and Abby Green. So some pretty solid indoor 800 meter time, especially for those Carroll girls coming back on a double. Like I said, it looks like they're working on some leg speed here. Obviously some 3,200 past precedent for Megan Hathaway and Abby Green last year. So maybe they're thinking working on that kick for outdoors.
Yeah, and I think the indoor season's always a good opportunity to maybe work on those shorter events. The 3,200 is just tough indoors. It's a lot of laps and a lot of turning, and so I think it's always the indoor season always provides a good little opportunity to kind of work on your leg speed.
Completely agree, Chris. Well said. So moving on to the boys 1,600 up at Taylor for the Indiana Runner Open meet. We had first sighting of Jesse Hamlin from Fort Wayne Snyder. Had a great cross-country season. Was a 4:12 1,600 athlete as a junior last year, one of the top returners. He's one of, what did we say in episode 1? We only have 2 medalists coming back on the track, and Jesse Hamlin is one of them. So he opened up with a 4:27 1,600, closely followed by Cole Powers of the Bowerman Track Club, but I believe Fort Wayne Carroll officially, with 4:29.46. So looks like it was a fairly tight race between Hamlin and Cole Powers. And then we also had Draven Thompson, another Carroll athlete, coming in, dipping under the 4:30 barrier at 4:29.99. And then Ryan Rupert at 4:30, Gino Cristofanelli at 4:33, Howard Hendricks 4:35, Spencer Carpenter 4:38, and then Isaiah Steery, a freshman who's been running quite a bit of indoor track this year, coming in at 4:38. So pretty solid time for a true freshman.
Oh yeah. I mean, anything under like 5 really is good for a true freshman. Anything under 4:40 is stellar. That's means you got a bright future.
Because in high school there's a difference between freshmen and true freshmen, right, Chris?
Well, yeah, not really, but
that's one of our bad jokes. So sorry for that, guys. So the boys 800, we had some athletes double back for the boys 800. Cole Powers being one of them, coming in second. Corey Waldron, another Fort Wayne Carroll athlete, I believe, at 2:03.72 took the victory. Cole Powers doubling back, another 2:03. Draven Thompson coming back on a double 2:05. Then we had a host full of other athletes pulling that 16-800 double. Seems to be the theme up in Fort Wayne right now, running some 16s and 8s in this early indoor track season.
Yeah, you can kind of race your way into shape early, and it's a good opportunity to practice doubling. I think they probably had a decent amount of time in between being kind of the first earlier bit, one of the bigger meets. So, and being co-ed, that usually spreads things out a little bit. So they probably had a decent amount of rest in there.
Definitely. And then in the boys 3,200 at Taylor, back on February 2nd, Gino Cristofanelli came back and doubled off that 4:33 in the 1,600. Came back and doubled with a 9:45. Looks like it was pretty solo time trial type effort. So Gino seems to be running strong already in February. Interested to see what the Crown Point product does through the outdoor season and obviously the HSR season before that.
Yeah, pretty impressive 3,200 time. I mean, for just being the first meet. And those indoor 3,200s, it's already a small track, and usually there's probably a lot of lapping going on. So that probably ended up being longer than a 3,200 anyway. So, yeah, good one, and looking forward to see what he's going to do later on.
Yeah, most definitely. More recently, this past weekend, on Saturday, we had the Indiana Track Club High School Open. Pulled some solid results and performances from the Gladstein Fieldhouse down in Bloomington, Indiana, on the campus of the Indiana University. Chris, looks like we had some 4x8 relays take to the track.
Yeah, so we'll mention the winning times. Fall Creek Track Club, I'm guessing that's Hamilton Southeastern. Could be a Fisher's combination. But they ran 8:11, so that's about 2:03 average, a little under 2:03 average. So pretty good starting off. And then on the ladies' side, Noblesville came in with a 10:07, so that's about a 2:32 average. So those are pretty good relay times early. It's tough to really work on the speed work, and I know we've had some pretty terrible weather here locally in the central Indiana area, so I'm guessing it's been tough to work on that speed work. So pretty good little opener there on those relays.
Then in the girls 1600, we had some solid times thrown down at IU this weekend. Phoebe Bates, the defending state champion in the 1600 meter run outdoors for Carmel, looked like she opened up her track campaign for her junior year here in a 5:10 1600. A nice 8-second victory over Sydney Little from Floyd Central, who came in at 5:18. And then Sarah Greer with a very solid performance from Lawrence North, also in 5:18 for third.
Yeah, so that's really solid, compared to that 5:07 that those Fort Wayne Carroll girls ran. So it'll be interesting to see if those Fort Wayne Carroll girls and Phoebe might meet this IR showcase coming up soon. So that could be a hot race, or if not, maybe later on in outdoors, those group of girls could have some battles coming up here that'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, most definitely. And then moving on to the boys 1600 down at IU this past weekend, we had some Kentucky athletes that infiltrated our state north here. But from Indiana, we had David Heineman from Floyd Central break 4:30 with a 4:29.22. He came in third place just off of two Kentucky athletes who came in at 4:26 and 4:27. So Mr. Heineman from down at Floyd Central running pretty solid this early track season, pretty much in the same ballpark as what the Fort Wayne athletes did at Taylor the week before. Then it looks like we had this interesting result here in the men's coaches 1600, Chris.
Yeah. So I put this in there. Got to give my boy Andy Cowan a shout out. Ran a 4:49 in pants, so that's a pretty solid little victory in the coach's mile. I know he's looking to do some good things coming up here a little bit later, so glad to see my guy Andy winning a race there.
And then outside of the state of Indiana, we've got to talk about Emma Wilson, even though she is not participating in the IHSAA season this year. She is a senior at Greencastle High School. She ran in Ohio this past weekend at the Spire Invitational. She ran a 4:58 to finish fourth in the 1600, and then she came back on a double and set a PR in the 3200 at 10:27.53, which I believe is a U.S. number one right now indoors for the 3200 in this fairly early indoor track season. So Emma Wilson continues to do her thing, Chris, with sub-5 efforts and sub-10:30. She's kind of in a league of her own in the state of Indiana right now.
Yeah, she's knocked it out of the park. Again, we mentioned before, it's not looking like she's going to be able to compete against the other IHSA athletes this year. So hopefully, maybe postseason or something like that, we can see them all battle.
No doubt. And then a few other performances from meets around the state over the past few weeks, the past month. We had a big 800-meter performance that got thrown down on February the 2nd down in Nashville, Tennessee at the oversized Vanderbilt track, which is only a few years old. Great facility down in Nashville. And it was a hound, Chris.
Yeah, Eli, I think it's pronounced Canal. And that's pretty crazy. 155. I don't know if Carmel keeps indoor school records or anything like that, but that's got to be one of the top indoor 800s. I think looks like he's leading here by about 8 seconds over the next best indoor 800. So I know he's been working hard. So whatever he's been doing seems to be working. I'm really, really happy to see anytime a hound throw down something hot like that.
Yeah, 155 is moving, even for an oversized indoor track. Curious to see what Eli does for the remainder of the indoor season, and obviously more importantly in the state of Indiana, what he does outdoors. So that boys 800 is kind of a wide open race this year. It seems to be a wide open race every year in the state of Indiana. So yeah, we'll see what Eli does moving into the outdoor season. In the boys 1600, we've talked about a few performances. Jesse Hamlin's at the top of the leaderboards right now with his 427 from that meet at Taylor. But we've seen some sightings of Reese Gibson, the junior from Fort Wayne Concordia, making his presence known back in January with a 428 1600. And then we've seen JT Hodges as well run a meet out in Kansas in late January with a 431 1600. So some solid performances, some guys hovering around the 430 benchmark right now. Curious to see what happens this upcoming weekend at the showcase. I think we're going to see some of the big studs open up their indoor campaigns. Some of these other guys that have been opening up a little earlier will probably join, and we'll see maybe them lead each other to some faster times and some good solid competition. So on the girls' side, looking through the leaderboards here, we have Claire Severn from Evansville Memorial, who also ran down in Nashville, Tennessee at Vanderbilt on February the 2nd, run a 2:21, which is a very solid girls 800 meter time this early on an indoor track. So looking to see how she rolls with that through the rest of indoor into the outdoor season. And that pretty much wraps up the Indiana performances up through this point in time. Obviously, we've got the big showcase coming up, the Indiana Runner Showcase at Wabash College. So I suspect that the leaderboards will be completely rewritten on our next podcast.
Yeah, showcase coming up, and then a lot of these HSR qualifying meets. So, and a few of the conferences around the state hold conference meets as well. So usually those produce some pretty good competition. So yeah, keep right here on RunIN to stay up to date.
Yeah, dust off the spikes, and looking forward to hopefully some of our listeners getting out there and setting some PRs. So, well, that's it for episode 3 of RunIN Podcast, and look forward to joining you guys next week and analyzing some of the showcase results.